Well, here we are. Here we are starting another Sunday, noon Pacific time on the 12th day of January in the year of our Lord 2020. Let me just adjust a little here on the computer. Today we will be looking at the Xegesis of Philip K. Dick. And if I'm talking funny, it's because I just had to have a mint. I'm about to open a document. It's the book that I'm working on now called The X in Exegesis. And hello, everybody. Blah, 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 title page, back page, preface. I've covered that. I saw something weird in here. I don't know. I've covered that. Here we go. Chapter 2, The Visions. In a letter to Paul Williams, I don't have the exact date, but it was probably 1978, somewhere between 77 and 79. Phil wrote that he was certain that what contacted him in March of 1974 was the Holy Spirit. And eventually he came to identify the Holy Spirit as the Logos. Someone, Tim in the chat room, said something funny. I'm used to saying logos. It's really logos, but I like logos. It's been a friend of mine for years. And cheers, it's only water, but what the heck. Hi, Oswald. Zebrapedia Online Exegesis. Yes, I've even deciphered a few pages of the handwritten notes that Phil wrote for the Zebrapedia. It's difficult to read his writing, but I think I do better than most in deciphering it. Oh, Oswald has ginger tea. I have instant coffee. I'll make a real pot tomorrow. Real coffee. Someone gave me a whole bunch of K-cups. I don't have a Keurig machine, but I can set up the Melita filter and make coffee that way with the contents of the K-cups. My heating pad is getting too warm. It's another chilly day. I haven't checked the temperature yet. Let's see what my phone says. It's usually pretty close to what the thermometer says. Oh, it was 28 when I got up this morning, around 6. Oh, now it's 52. That's good. No wonder I turned off the heater. Boy. Okay, something's going on Facebook. Um, Sometimes I hate the spell check. Well, I'll take a chance and see if Facebook will load while I'm on YouTube Live. My little local group is having a problem. Well, hi, Kev and Oswald and Tim. We will get to the exploration of the exegesis. The X is the important part in part. I don't know if that's a pun or not. Anyway, because Phil thought the cross was shaped like an X. It wasn't, it couldn't have been. But that's what he thought, because when the Emperor Constantine had a vision of the cross in the sky right before that crucial battle to unify the Eastern and Western Roman empires, Constantine saw a cross in the sky. And Phil knew it was shaped like the X, but he was only half right. It was a chi-rho, the letter X with a P above it, with the vertical part of the letter P coming down through the center of the X. In Greek, those letters are chi and rho. It's actually something more like he and Crow, but I'm not a Greek, so I call it Cairo. Some suggest that it's the first two letters of the word Christ, which is the Greek for Messiah. Others suggest that it stands for two words, Christ and regnant. Jesus reigns, Christ rules. In any case, it became the dominant symbol of Christianity. No disrespect to the fish sign, but the chi-rho became more popular by the late 200s and early 300s AD. And of course, Constantine, he did not actually make the empire Christian, but he quit. He didn't make it the official religion of the empire, but he did stop all persecution of Christians and other religions. Oh, the Republic of Liverpool, a Liverpudlian. Well, so Boris Johnson is still in power, huh? Well, I don't know enough to have an opinion, but as far as the renegade royals go, goodbye and good luck. I suppose you couldn't do worse than Margaret Thatcher, but that's another story. And once again, I'm not all that well informed about British politics. It's just not on my radar unless it happens to come up in, let's say, Midsummer Murders or Downton Abbey, which I quit watching because they keep killing off my favorite characters. I I started the season where what's his name got out of prison, the butler or whatever he was, and I just said no, nope, I've had enough. It's a soap opera, okay, but just because the actor wants more money doesn't mean you have to kill off his character. Oh, don't even talk to me about our swamp. It's ruled by basically British royals. Now they wear business suits, but they're all related to Queen Elizabeth or at least Queen Victoria. And they all got their money by underhanded dealings and thug tactics. We called them robber barons in the oh, late 1800s and early 1900s for good reason. They think they're royalty. There's a problem with all the European royalty. They're too inbred. That's why Charles is ugly. That's why Andrew is sick. That's why Charles had to marry Princess Diana. She wasn't quite as inbred as his other options for a wife. And their children came out looking a little better than Charles's generation. American royalty are this is Oswald in chat. American royalty are crypto British aristocracy, who are in turn crypto German aristocracy, who are in turn better not mention that part. Well, I think they're all descended from Attila the Hun. And as for the Rothschilds, they aren't even Jewish. They'll call themselves Jewish when it's to their advantage, but ethnically, they are not Jews. If they were, they would have been rounded up by Hitler's Nazis and put in death camps and had their property confiscated. Only one Rothschild was ever arrested, and he was hiding Jews from the Nazis. Anyway, I am looking for something now that someone alerted me about on the Facebook group, and I can't find it. Okay, December 1. Sorry, I gotta check. Here we go. All right. I think I've done it. Yes. Okay, now I have to let my partner in crime, my compadrea. Okay, let her know it's taken care of. Okay. Now, anyway, and as far as the Israelites marching into the promised land and killing everybody, no, that isn't what happened. The descendants of Lot and the descendants of Esau had been warring against the Anakim and other tribes who had invaded, by the way. They had been battling with them the whole time that Israel was in Egypt. And by the way, not all of Israel went to Egypt. 70 people went. Uh, there were many more who didn't go. And so, anyway, uh, the Israelites were told, you don't touch Lot's descendants. You don't touch Esau's descendants. You don't touch peaceful people. You drive them out, but you don't kill them. If they happen to be interlopers, intruders, invaders. But these Anakim, who are like 12 feet tall and cannibals and sacrifice babies to their gods of fire, them, you drive them out, and if they don't leave, you kill them. All of them. So that was, yeah, I guess you could say genocide against the Anakim, but they were strange. And I've been thinking, I really need to find an expert who can dig into the text more than I can. But Genesis 6, chapter 6, the first 4 verses, it doesn't really say that the Nephilim are the offspring of the sons of God. It says they lived on the earth in that time. And then when we go to the book of First Enoch, Enoch says that the children of the sons of God and daughters of Adam were giants. And back to Genesis 6, verse 4, there were giants in the earth in those days, but they aren't necessarily the same giants. I mean, Enoch has these giants being 60 feet tall, and yet the Nephilim are like 12 feet tall. That's a big difference. And when you go into Greek myth, talking about the Titans, there are two um, rounds of Titans. The first one is divine sons of heaven and earth, like Prometheus and Atlas. But then you have another round where the Olympian gods mate with human women and create Hercules. And Orion is a giant, by the way, but I don't know. So maybe there's the Nephilim giants who are really tall, and then these other half divine giants who are really tall. But the ones that the Israelites are dealing with are apparently of human descent, 12 feet tall, more or less. Now, I think I would, how can I say this without being crude? I'd need to change my pants if I saw a 12-foot tall warrior. My ceiling is what, 8 or 10 feet tall, and that's high enough. Thank you. Anyway, back to the X in exegesis. The Logos is translated as the Word in the Gospel of John. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. That's the Logos. Darn it, Phil said Logos. I'm used to Logos. I know it's Logos, but I don't care. Now, the Greeks had an ordinary term for ordinary words. Lexi, as in lexicon. Logos is much more than word. All right, let's see if I can put it. Yes. It's rational thought. It's more. It's the creative word of God. Well, I hear all these arguments. If all the Nephilim died in Noah's flood, how'd they get back on the earth? Did the angels come back and mate with more human women after they saw how these other angels were punished by being thrown into the depths of hell, into Tartarus, which is as far below Hades as heaven is above earth. It's chains of darkness and all that suffering and such, which must be really hell for an angel who's used to living in heaven, which is like the sky. Creepy. Or did one of the people on Noah's Ark happen to have some Nephilim genes? Well, I've been toying with the idea that maybe Noah had a servant who wasn't considered a human being because she wasn't uh, related, and that's who Ham made whoopee with. Maybe Noah's wife was his second wife and not the mother of his children, and maybe that's who Ham made whoopee with. The Bible says in our translations that when Noah got drunk, Ham uncovered his father's nakedness. Well, that's their metaphor for making whoopee with the man's wife. I've got hair in my mouth. Because Ham wasn't cursed. His son Canaan was cursed. The ancestor of the Canaanites. Something to think about. Canaan apparently was not the child of Ham's wife, but of Noah's wife. Well, anyway, in John's Gospel, we have the Word creating everything. All things were made by Him. And in Hebrews chapter 11, verse 3, we have, through faith we understand that the worlds were framed by the Word of God, so that things which are seen were not made of things which do appear. Okay, the worlds were framed by the Word of God. Now, some people say that Paul wrote the letter to the Hebrews, but there's some dispute about that, and I'm not an expert. But it does say the Word of God made the worlds. And then we get to Philip K. Dick's favorite psychologist, Carl Jung. Or maybe his second favorite. He really liked Harry Stack Sullivan, the schizophrenic psychiatrist. Who found that paranoids really could read your mind, but they couldn't distinguish between your fantasies and your intentions. Like I might fantasize about murdering the cat, but I would never do it. However, if the cat thought I was threatening her, she'd be paranoid. The fact is, I'm in more danger from her. She's quite the little huntress. Anyway, Carl Jung explained the logos, and it's really confusing. But basically, as the rational soul that guides the unconscious through a man's anima, while eros, love, produces a woman's animus. Now, so a man has this unconscious female in his unconscious mind that Jung calls the anima. and it is created by the logos. So he has logos or rationality creating love in his unconscious. For a woman, it's the opposite. Love, eros, which is a Greek for Cupid, produces a woman's animus, and the animus in a woman's unconscious is a shadow of the logos. Logos. Logos is good enough for me. Oh gosh. So here's a quote from Carl Jung. On a low level, the animus is an inferior logos, a caricature of the differentiated masculine mind. So the animus in the woman is a caricature of a man's brilliant mind. Uh-huh. Male chauvinist pig. You'd have to live through the 70s to understand that phrase. Just as on a low level, the anima, that's in the man's unconscious, is a caricature of the feminine eros, or love. So men can't have real emotions, and women can't have real rational, logical minds. We get our word logic from logos. We don't call it logic or logic. And then in 1 Samuel chapter 3, when Samuel the prophet is still a boy, he's gone to sleep, and he thinks his teacher Eli is calling him. 3 times he hears the Lord calling him. And 3 times he thought it was Eli. And finally, on the third one, Eli said, here we go. Eli finally figured out, and he said to Samuel, go lie down, and if he calls you, say, speak, Lord, for thy servant heareth. I'm kind of paraphrasing. And the Lord came, I thought it said word. Oh. And the Lord came and stood and called at other times, Samuel, Samuel. But earlier in the same story, you have the word of the Lord. Now, I think I have some typos here. But anyway, you have the word of the Lord of God standing there and talking to Samuel and telling him things about the future. Now, of course, the word for word in the Old Testament is not logos. That's a Greek word, and they wrote that in Hebrew. Mikhail, like an anti-logos, a shadow. That's something to think about. The Jung also posited that each of us have an unconscious shadow that kind of holds all our negative qualities like fear and anger and, I don't know, whatever. And that we are haunted by our own shadows. Hi, Philip. Hi, Sugar Patch. Hi, Crichton. Oswald, who's that? I have no clue who Roger Scruton is. I guess I have to look it up. I think it might be a guy I heard about on the news, but okay. Oh, Sir Roger Vernon Scruton, English philosopher and writer. It already says was, but it doesn't say he died. Oh, here we go. The BBC says he died. Philosopher and writer who specialized in aesthetics and political philosophy, particularly in the furtherance of traditionalist conservative views. Well, in England, I have a feeling conservative doesn't quite mean what it means here. Okay. Okay. Well, I don't know what to say. As I said, before, I don't know that much about British politics, but I do have the impression that conservative there means being loyal to the crown and other nobility. He would call himself a classical liberal. Well, I don't like any of them, liberals and conservatives. I like people who make up their own minds based on each issue, who benefits, who is harmed, stuff like that. For example, I'm sorry, there's a chainsaw going next door. We lost a lot of trees and tree limbs in two storms. Anyway, there's a great wisdom in the cliche, follow the money. Maybe it isn't a cliche, maybe it's a maxim. Got my trusty e-cig, but I want the real thing. He was a Jungian. Huh. Well, Phil kind of fell out of, or I should say, Jung fell out of favor with Philip K. Dick. Of course, Jung never knew that. I think he was dead. But Phil did use some of Jung's concepts. Elvis Presley would have been 85. Let's see. Philip K. Dick would have been last December. Oh, help. We got 2 and 70 and 19. He would have been 91. I don't think he would have lived that long. Phil was fascinated by Jung's interest in UFOs and the paranormal. But I suppose Jung probably was a pagan. He just wasn't quite as bad as Freud. You know, Freud said everything was about sex, and Jung disagreed. And, even Freud once said sometimes a cigar is just a cigar. But basically, Freud thought everything bad in your character was about sex. And Jung thought, sex could be a good thing. I wonder if either of them had any children. All right, Michael remembers a Pixar cartoon where all of the anthropomorphic animals are reverting back to their bestial selves. I don't remember it, but okay, Oswald, what's fraud? Uh, okay, Oswald, what is fraud? I don't see the reference. Oh, Freud fraud. Thank you. Trying to type and talk at the same time. Oh, yes, Philip. Envy. Yeah, like women really envy men for having a tender part that we can use as weapons against them. Mm-hmm. There's a story, I'm not going to name names, but there was a story of a certain Hollywood producer and a certain young starlet. Apparently, and again, I have to say this delicately, but he tried to force himself on her, uh, but when he put it in her mouth, she bit it off. It's supposed to be a true story. I say good for her. But man, that had to be awful. But you see, that's a man's most vulnerable spot. The head that, or the brain that the man sits on. I'm going to have a real cigarette and more water. Hang on. Let's see. Uh, the cat is being awfully quiet. Is she being mysterious or mischievous? Uh, I seem to have two extra cats lately. Hi, Mel's Wheels. Hi, Strontium. Uh, two local tomcats keep visiting, and Sweetie, the one who won't come into the house, is spayed, but the one that's inside, Tora, uh, never goes out because she hasn't been spayed yet. So perhaps you could contribute to the Tora Fund to get her spayed. And I put a link in the chat. Now that I have an ashtray, a cigarette, and a lighter, I don't want the cigarette. That's a good thing. They're nasty things and they're bad for me. Anyway, um, all right, let's take a look at. I'm going to have, oh, yes, there's a paper by Umberto Rossi, which is really cool and which has inspired. Uh-huh. Okay. Let's see. Uh, I'm going to have to cut this post in half. It's too long. There, here we go. Just a bunch of words. The image of the secluded family and the problem of logos in P.K. Dick's Time Out of Joint. I don't know whether you can find the journal that published it, the Kent State University Press, which I find oddly coincidental since Phil was so upset by what happened at Kent State. I forget what year, but some students were protesting the Vietnam War, and it was a peaceful protest. But the governor called out the National Guard and several Students were shot, some were killed. Kent State shootings. May 4th, 1970, unarmed college students were shot by the Ohio National Guard at Kent State University in Kent, Ohio, during a mass protest against the bombing of neutral Cambodia by United States military forces. The National Guard panicked and started firing their weapons. Well, I wasn't there, but I was 16 years old at the time and aware that it had happened. I always get suspicious when I read message retracted. Yeah, our forebears, I was too young, but the older people of my generation marched and protested, and of course, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. became prominent and led some important peaceful protests that led to changes in the way people of color were treated. Jackson State as well, two were killed there. Oh, I haven't heard of Jackson State, Philip. I wasn't all that aware of much of anything when I was in high school. I was too busy trying to be a good student and stuff like that. Of course, I saw the headlines. And of course, the evening news was always played on our black and white television. Imagine eating dinner while they're showing battles in Vietnam. You get used to it. And when I was studying pre medicine, I got used to things I wish I had not gotten used to. Uh, oh well. Anyway, shoot. The 60s and 70s were a really rough time. Especially if you happen to have darker skin than most. It really, for the most part, we weren't terribly prejudiced against Mexicans. But even now in Mexico, it's almost as if the people with really dark skin and black hair were the untouchables of India. In Mexico, the lighter your skin, the higher you rise in society. And yes, there are blonde haired, blue eyed Mexicans because they're Spanish. They aren't descended from the indigenous people. Oh, you want to watch the bombings of the Middle East, Oswald? I can't watch them. I can't go there. Well, they showed enough on the television news during the Vietnam War that people were horrified, and ordinary middle class parents whose children were still in high school wanted that war to end. And that's how Richard Nixon got himself elected. He promised to get us out of Vietnam. And eventually he did. Oh, yeah, well. I have little respect for today's media. They just go for the most viewers, the best ratings. And they're stupid. Stoopid, stupid, because they can't spell either. I actually go ballistic sometimes when I listen to the news. I rarely watch the picture if there is one. Apparently, if you own your house, you have a home loan or a mortgage because they quit learning to talk when they were 3 years old. And there is only one Barbara Walters. She had a speech impediment and she did pronounce those words better than today's pretty faces in the media. Oh, yes, Oswald. Well, it depends on which American whites you talk to, but Mexico has a caste system based primarily upon how light your skin is or how dark it is. Those of mixed ancestry, Spanish and Indian, do better than their tribal people. And as badly as we've treated our Native Americans, you should do some research into how Canada has treated their First Nations people. You know, all the people we call Indians. Women, Native First Nations women are being murdered, and Canada will not let the tribal police investigate the murders. And of course, the non First Nations police don't care. Oh, yeah. From, well, let's say, I guess Texas down to the tip of Tierra del Fuego, ever since the Spanish and Portuguese invaded, there's been a caste system all over North, Central, and South America, starting in Texas, really, or if you would prefer, the Mexican border, and all the way down to the tip of South America. The people of Tierra del Fuego, who are a specific tribe, are almost gone. Those who were not killed off have intermarried to the point where they don't really exist anymore. They're the people who told us that there used to be giants in Tierra del Fuego, and the giants used to eat people. Well, anyway, um, yeah, it's basically how light is your skin, and if you're pure Spanish or Portuguese with no native ancestry, you're at the top of the ladder. Or if you happen to be a German, lots of Germans in South America, and they weren't all Nazis, although a good portion of them were. I'm pretty sure that generation has died off, if not entirely, almost. Sorry, entirely. My knee hit the bottom of my writing desk. Um, there's good evidence that at least Martin Bormann made it to South America and never got tracked down by the Mossad, the Israeli Nazi hunters. I mean, he cashed checks in the 1960s. checks for millions of dollars. Oh, Longmire. Yeah, I've watched all of Longmire that was on Netflix. I'm pretty sure it's actually a series of books too. Haven't seen the books. The Giant of Cardiff was just a carved stone statue. So was the Piltdown Man was also a fraud. Uh, and it took something like 60 years to uncover that fraud. You see, the archaeologists wanted so badly to find a transition species between ape and human that they were taken in by let's see, it was an ape's skull, a pig's jaw, and some other pieces that were passed off as an ancestor of humans that was very ape-like. You quite often see what you want to see. All right, I said I was going to explore the exegesis. Anyway, Umberto Rossi paper talks about Phil's 1959 novel Time Out of Joint, in which the seemingly solid objects, these are my words, not Rossi's, but it's my summary of things that he said. The seemingly solid objects in Regal Gum's world turn out to be nothing more than words written on slips of paper. Gum, Regal Gum. Phil said he kind of was reimagining Wrigley gum, Wrigley's chewing gum. Gum begins to learn the truth of his situation from the words that he hears emanating from a child's crystal radio set. And scrolling down a bit, objects revert to words written on slips of paper, and the illusion of reality fades away. The Logos, on the other hand, gives us a solid reality that does not revert to mere words. Oh, Time Out of Joint is one of my favorites. I'm going to have to take a real quick break here, recycle some coffee, but I will be back, so don't go away. Too bad I can't get the record player to work. I could give you a musical interlude. Okay, I'm coming back. Hope you guys have been behaving while I was gone. And the answer to that is yes, of course I am behave. Okay. Let's see. The eyes of that species of extinct giants whose bones fill the mounds of America have gazed on Niagara as ours do now. Abraham Lincoln. Oh, yeah, and there's this theory that people were so stupid in ancient times that they saw elephant skulls or mammoth skulls and assumed that these were the skulls of one-eyed giants with because the big hole for the nose would be misinterpreted as a single eye, as if the people were too stupid to see that there were two little eye holes up here. Sure, if you take a photograph from just the right angle, you can't see the eye holes, but someone coming upon the actual skull is not limited to one biased view. Hi, Sandra. Ah, let's see. Mel's Wheels. Is that a cool car? These icons are so tiny, it's hard to tell. And Sandra Strontium suddenly has no icon. Oh, just a purple cartoon thingy. The default icon. That's what it's called. Well, anyway, Sleepy Dave is here? Oh, that's right. That's who Mel's Wheels is. Sleepy. Gotcha. Oh, Hot Wheels is the only kind of car I have right now. Yeah, the Smithsonian probably is hiding things in their basement because they don't know what to do with them. And they're afraid that if they showed them to the unwashed masses of heathen scum and pagans and whatever, and especially to Christians, these artifacts might be misinterpreted to mean that the hallowed halls of science have made a mistake, have promoted false narratives. Mass car culture was one of the worst things to happen to America. Well, I wish I could safely get around with a horse and cart, or even on horseback, although it really kills me to sit on a horse, no matter how behaved the horse happens to be. I'm just too old and ornery and tired and arthritic. China will exceed us because of their long-term investment in mass transit. Actually, mass transit just doesn't work in California. The geography does not accommodate it. You know, in a normal city, the bus goes up and down the street, north, south, east, west, all day long. Not in Southern California, not even in Northern California. The bus goes a couple blocks and hangs a right, cuts over, hangs a left, hangs another right, goes around in a 3 left turns to come back. So when you get on a bus in anywhere in California, really, you don't know where it's going to go unless you have their little schedule with the map. And even then, you don't know where it's going to stop and let you out. But I wouldn't mind getting around in a golf cart or a little horse and cart, you know, maybe a Shetland pony with a cart. But it isn't safe. I am tempted to get one of those electric wheelchairs, but then I saw what they cost. Cars are cheaper. I save a lot of money by not having a car. No car payment, no gasoline to buy, no insurance, no car repairs and maintenance. And nobody asks me to drive them anywhere. Ha ha. Yes, Seattle had a good trolley system long ago, and actually, when I was a little tiny child, Los Angeles had a decent trolley system, but it was scuttled to make room for buses. Yeah, where's my flying car? George Jetson had one. There are flying cars, but even if you could afford to buy one, you can't get a permit to fly it or even drive it. Big Brother is not only watching you, Big Brother is swatting you down every time you try to make some progress. We are not going to save the world by cutting emissions. If all of the United States had zero emissions, China and India would still be burning coal and oil with no scrubbers in the factory chimneys and truly polluting the atmosphere. In the cities in China, like Beijing, everybody wears masks over their faces so they can breathe. They can barely see. It's like a black fog all the time. And you want to tell me that if I use natural gas to cook my food, I'm destroying the planet? Well, I got news for you. Electricity is so unreliable here. I have to use natural gas, especially in the winter when I would freeze to death without it. I could get a generator, but it would have to burn gasoline, which is much worse. And solar panels don't work all that well in the forest. Yeah, flappers. Philip K. Dick, flying cars, flappers. Was that Blade Runner? Was that Minority Report? I'm not sure, but I do remember flappers, cars that fly. Game Players of Titan? Could be. I haven't actually read that one. Propane is nothing but a slightly different version of natural gas. And our wonderful California governor wants to ban all use of natural gas in California. That will include propane. And some houses not too far away from me are on propane for all their needs, their heat, their cooking. Um, oh, and the entire United States has now banned Freon for your air conditioner. You have to buy a new, if you run out of Freon, that is, you have to buy a new air conditioner that uses the new stuff. That's expensive. That's like thousands of dollars. Yeah, Freon's bad, but what about the new gas? It seems like every time they replace a toxic chemical, they replace it with something that's worse. Oh yeah, I did reread Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep recently. He didn't fly up to his roof, he took the stairs or the elevator, so I don't think he had a flying car in the book. The thing about electric cars, too, is if they get in a wreck, they tend to burst into flames because of the chemicals in the batteries. And if the fire doesn't get you, the battery acid will. Yes, Freon was, no. One type of Freon was banned in the 70s. But so they came up with this new kind of Freon. Freon is not the name of an I've been using is called Freon 2 or something like that. It was banned from things on deodorant. Oh goody, Google's Freon is a registered trademark of the Chemours Company, which uses it for a number of halocarbon products. It was the chlorofluorocarbons, which are a type of Freon, that were banned. Anyway, new Freon compound is also banned now. Why does this thing refuse to recognize that I did touch the space bar, for crying out loud? And anyway, back to exploring exegesis. Phil saw Ubik as the logos. In his exegesis, Philip K. Dick presented the logos as the outside source of living energy who corrects the disintegration of our world by supplying information. The editors of the published exegesis thought this was a contradiction because information supplies entropy, according to mathematical communication theory. But, oh yes, they just don't see the bigger picture, and I'll get back to that. Phil referred to his novel Ubik as a study of entropy. As the world degrades into cold chaos, a mysterious substance called Ubik reverses entropy by injecting energy into the system. What did I say I'd get back to? Oh, yeah. Information is both a creative force and a destructive force. I'm tired. Okay, time for a potato chip. You see, whether you look at the Big Bang theory of nothing suddenly exploding and becoming nothing, or the ancient atomic theory, not bombs, although they're rather similar to a Big Bang. Ancient Greek philosophers like Democritus said that originally the universe was just an infinite flow of atoms, an infinite number of atoms, just flowing or falling in a constant stream, and like a sheet of white paper, there was nothing you could see. In fact, you weren't even there. There was nothing but these atoms. Total, perfectly symmetrical everywhere. Until just a touch of chaos caused one atom to veer off course ever so slightly and touch another atom, and that bit of chaos in the perfect cosmos created all the stars and planets and galaxies that we see today. Without that chaos, there would be nothing to observe and nobody to observe it. So even though entropy or chaos can be seen as information, the information being the touch of one atom on another, it is all, ah, you evil machine, evil, evil machine. Come on. Okay, I'm not sure exactly when I froze up, but this tiny bit of chaos, one atom imparting information into the system by touching another atom, created the cosmos that we see today. Elon Musk was a woman's perfume. Maybe he was named after it. I've heard some names where I've sworn that I would have killed my mother if she'd named me that. I went to high school with Cherry Lane and Candy Cane. Ah. Well, you might be too young to know that Cherry Lane was a popular song. Candy Cane is self-explanatory. Actually, perfect chaos would also be an endless sea of nothing. You wouldn't be able to observe it. And by the way, when astrophysicists tell you that there was this singularity, there was nothing and it exploded and became everything, and that's how we got the Big Bang and our universe. When they say nothing, they don't mean what we mean. When I say there's nothing there, I mean there nothing exists there. It's empty. When astrophysicists say there's nothing, they just mean they can't observe anything. Apple, huh? Apple is used as a metaphor for asshole. Everybody does it. Oh, he's such an apple. I would never name my kid that. Yes, her name was Candy Cane. They spelled it like this, Kane. Candy Cane. Anyway, um, wow. The world is astonishing. The food that I'm eating shares the same atoms. Never mind. Now, Richard Dawkins is an apple. He's an idiot. You see, it's one thing to look at the evidence and dismiss it as invalid or proving nothing. It's quite another to refuse to look at the evidence because you know that it can't be real. That's the state of mainstream science at this point. 9 out of 10 scientists agree, therefore it must be true, and we don't have to test our hypothesis because we agree on it. Well, Hitchens had a brother, Peter Hitchens, complete opposite. He's a Christian. I find that hilarious. And he says he never liked his older brother, and his older brother apparently tried to kill him when they were very young. Christopher Hitchens, I believe, is the atheist. Richard Dawkson is a simple-minded biologist. Yeah, when you get into astrophysics, it gets so mystical, you kind of have to turn to the idea that God spoke and nothing became everything. You see, if you assume that the universe is a closed system, that there is no God outside the universe, you have a problem. There isn't enough matter to prevent the galaxies from flying apart. And now they found that um, you know how everything in the universe is moving away from everything else? That movement has accelerated, and it should be slowing down as entropy increases and these things lose energy. So rather than say, oh, well, it isn't a closed system, there's a God outside the universe who injects energy as logos or eubic or information, they have to either say, okay, God is adding energy, or there's energy and matter already here, but we can't see it. And they're desperately trying to find dark matter and dark energy. They find evidence for something. The galaxies don't fly apart, at least not very fast. And the energy of the Big Bang, the motion, is increasing. It does have more energy than it used to have. Okay, did who get? Wish I were in Dixie. Oh, Dixie Cup? Dusty Glass, Dixie Cup, and Sunny Day. Oh, those poor people, Dave. Well, belief in God is not the cause of war. It's the words of religious leaders. Well, Dave, Bailey and Riley might be dogs' names, but how about Rover and Fido? I don't know any humans named Rover or Fido, although I did once have a neighbor who called his son Boy. Never his name. They were German, so he called him Booby, but that's German for boy. He called his daughter by her name. Oh, Fidel, I guess. Uh-huh. So anyway, information is both a source of entropy and a source of information. It seems like a paradox. Source of energy. The information moved those atoms. That's kinetic energy. But apparently, in mathematical communication theory, the creation of energy, the creation of information kind of steals or borrows energy from the system. And energy, as we learned from the various laws of thermodynamics, energy is not created and not destroyed, but it is degraded. So, for example, your kinetic energy, the energy of motion, becomes heat energy. Like when A car rolls down the road, the friction of the tires against the road creates heat. Heat is not as usable a form of energy as kinetic energy. Entropy is the reason why we can't get 100% efficiency in things like car engines. There's always a bit of entropy. The fuel is burned, creating heat, and that heat is converted into motion. But because heat is a lower form of energy, it takes more of it to create motion, and the rest is lost. Some is always lost in the form of heat. Oh, Dr. Sandman conducted a sleep study. That's cute. I once knew a dog named Dog Barf, and he came upon that name for his own protection. And these fans of science fiction had named him after Harlan Ellison. And Harlan Ellison, when he learned that the dog was named after him, threw a fit and threatened to kill the dog if they didn't change his name. Now, I don't care if he was bipolar, there's no excuse for that kind of behavior. So they changed it to Dog Barf. Problem solved. The dog survived. Oh, yeah, the bubble. It didn't kill the prisoner, but it did kill some people. It's just this big white balloon, usually out in on the breakers, the ocean shore. Its name was Rover. The prisoner was a metaphor for where we live now. Oh, the Avengers, yeah. Steed and Peel. When Mrs. Peel, the actress apparently had a serious medical problem and they had to replace her, the show went downhill. Knock it off, Tora! I don't need you shredding my jacket. She can't meow, by the way, she squeaks. Yeah, the heat death of the universe is scarier than climate change. The heat death is where all the energy in the universe degrades into heat. Nothing but a uniform expanse of heat. All light being infrared, no white light. There's more to it than that. Of course, a lot of this is just the darn refusal of, the black matter, black energy, and the Big Bang and all, and even Einstein's relativity. They just refuse to go back to the old theory of the ether. That space is not empty. That is, it is a medium like an ocean, a sea of something in which light and particles and planets and stars and everything move. There just seems like something wrong with the idea that light and cosmic rays and all these things, these wave forms, can travel through nothing, through an empty vacuum. By the way, if you want to remember how to spell vacuum, pronounce it vacuum instead of vacuum. And that will remind you that it has two U's. Earlier in this, whatever this is, podcast, I guess, I was fussing about people who can't pronounce words. You see, I don't mind ordinary people just talking. But people in the media are paid to write scripts and to read them on the air. And I really think they should have continued learning how to speak after the age of 3. They drive me nuts with things I learned in the 3rd grade, like they say the ship sunk. No, it didn't sunk, it sank. Sink, sank, sunk. Sink, sank, has sunk or had sunk. Oh, and by the way, they say they hung the criminal. No, you hung your clothes in the closet. You hanged the criminal. But that's another story for another time. I don't have the energy to rant about it for too long. Okay, Michael, the death of the universe, yeah. It's at least a couple billion years away. They keep changing their minds about how long we have. But those of us who are here will be long gone. Now, what is time? We don't know. All right, one short rant. Why do they keep saying the time where? Time is when, not where. Where is a place, not a time. All right, that's enough ranting. Oh, yeah. Well, you see, many of these so called news sources online just pay people to write short pieces for, I don't know, some get a few pennies, some get a few points to trade for gift cards, and some just get their name on the byline. But, these aren't journalists. I don't fuss quite so much about that, but when it's the New York Times or a respected magazine like Time or Newsweek, then I get upset. And when I was in college and even when I was in high school, if I'd made those stupid mistakes, my teacher would have made me rewrite it or given me a C minus. Oh, impactful and concerning are buzzwords. It isn't quite so bad as some that popped up in the 70s. I'm trying to think of one. I doubt that they even have editors. Journalism has been cut to the bone. Um, Trying to think of that word that drove me nuts when I was still in high school. It'll come to me. One of my favorite words, though, see if I can remember that one. Oh, yeah. Conceptualization. Wow, what a concept. the term conceptualization has limited use in the esoteric field of uh, semantics. Outside of semantics, the proper word is concept, or better yet, the perfectly good English word, idea. Well, I say folks quite often, but I'm not on NPR. I don't consider folks a buzzword. It's just, I'm so scared of saying ladies and gentlemen because I'll be called something bad if I introduce myself and say, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Nothing wrong with it, but some people just have crazy interpretations. Besides, it kind of implies a sort of nobility. They ruined the word folks. I keep thinking of Porky Pig at the end of a Warner Brothers cartoon. The cartoon pig, Porky the Pig, would say, that's all, folks. Oh dear. Oh dear, dear. Roger Penrose pushes the word eons in his new theory. He likes the word. I like eons. They're a long time. I wonder if they're a specific period of time. How long is an eon? In Greek, it meant an age. Is an eon longer than an era? Google's. An epoch, not to be confused with epic, like an era, is a period of time. An epoch is longer than an era. The longest period. And then geologists subdivide an eon into eras. It says something is the longest period of time, but it's going to make me click on the whole article to. I guess an epoch is the longest period of time. That's weird. Oh, the German folk, yeah, folk means people. At one time, what we call English today was actually a dialect of Danish. Beowulf was written in that Danish dialect. Okay, I'm going to destroy my lungs and pollute the air. I can't stand it. This not smoking makes me crazy. Anyway, my water's empty. Whoa, gotta get water. Now, oddly enough, even though I am a recovering English teacher, spelling errors don't bother me a whole lot, as long as they have the right word. However, if they write, let's see, precedent, or it is not president. So if they say Nixon was the precedent, PRECE, that's the wrong word. He was the president. And he got Watergated. And he was a fool, if nothing else. Oh, yeah, well, ask a question is a regional dialect. I put up with it. It's like All right. Well, God, give me the strength to just calm down and ignore it. Please. Volkswagen. German officers in World War II were forbidden to ride in a Volkswagen because they were death traps. Finally, I think late 60s, early 70s, they figured out that the rear wheels of the Volkswagen were cambered in. So they added some springs and struts so they cambered out, and the little cars quit flipping over and killing people. However, I borrowed one once. I forget what was wrong with my car. Well, uh, it was low on gas, so I went to the gas station to fill it up. That was the deal. I'll let you borrow my car, but put some gas in it. I couldn't find the gas cap. I had to get the gas station attendant. Imagine we had gas station attendants back then. You pumped your own gas, but they'd check the oil and stuff. And on one row of gas pumps called full service, the gasoline cost more, but they would pump it for you. I had to ask him, "Where's the gas cap?" He opened the hood. I'm going, "So the gas tank is sitting right under my feet." "Oh, no, no, no," he said, "it's on top of your feet." Ah! No way. And they say the Pinto was bad because the gas tank could blow up. Oh, yeah, Oregon, in order to make sure that people have jobs, won't let you pump your own gas. I kind of like having someone else do it, but they are not allowed to check the oil for you. All they can do is pump the gas. The engine is in the back. Some Volkswagens have an engine in the back, but the one I was driving had it in the front. The trunk was in the front too. He leads you to lie down in green pastures is offensive? Mm. Everything's offensive these days. If someone is offended, then you did something bad. It's obvious, or they wouldn't be offended. Ah, Tora, what are you doing? What are you tearing apart now? Everyone should have a cat. Don't mess up my stuff. She can't help it. She's a cat. I think she's 4 or 5. No, let's see. She's 6 or 7 months old now. I never had problems in Eagle Point or Medford with waiting for a gas station attendant. Oh well. Anyway, yeah, I don't have a car. I save hundreds of dollars every month. Gas, car payment, insurance, car repairs, maintenance. Oh, yes, if the earth were really flat, cats would just push everything over the edge. Well, what she's doing now is she's found that in my cardboard box is a plastic bag with stuff in it, so she just has to pull out the bag and shred the bag. She'd settle down if I let her chase the little red dot, the elusive red dot. Come on, kitty kitty. The laser pointer. That's a good girl. She'll climb up the wall trying to get it. Well, where'd you go? Well, you aren't shredding my stuff. We've been going an hour and 40, and yes, you're cute. Don't bite me, please. Yeah. Oh yeah, that's what I was doing. Exegesis. Ow! She didn't really hurt me. I'm just training her not to attack me with claws. All right. Ow, ow. Don't do that. Ow! Trust me, she's not hurting me. I'm just pretending. Go get it. Entropy is increasing in our universe as stars use up their energy and become cold relics of their former glory. And as new stars use up energy in order to light their fires, I'm going to say newborn stars. I like metaphors. Entropy simply is not increasing fast enough to disrupt our daily lives, but it is increasing. Ah, ah, ah. Get it. Get it, get it, get it. Okay, so we've got increasing entropy, and yet the motion of everything in the universe flying away from everything else in the universe, that expansion is increasing. It's going faster, accelerating. It shouldn't be able to. And yet it is. So there must be dark energy fueling this acceleration. And galaxies don't contain enough matter to prevent them from flying apart. There isn't enough gravity. So there must be dark matter holding them together. I think, A, there's something wrong with our theories of the physical universe, and B, there's something really wrong with how we measure the ages of things. Tree rings are a pretty good measure. They go back maybe 10,000 years. Maybe there's older trees than that, but you have to kind of kill the tree. You slice it and count the rings to figure out how old it is. But same with the carbon-14 dating. It's really only accurate up to maybe 12,000 years ago. In other words, the end of the last ice age. And by the way, the ice age hasn't really ended. We're just in a warmer period of the ice age. So when they talk about global warming, I say, bring it on. I'm cold. I'm supposed to not want a warmer climate because an island in the Pacific Ocean might sink and the people would have to move and live somewhere else. Even before modern civilization, those people had boats and they moved from island to island because their islands were always sinking. Oh, Oswald made a pun. Okay. Anyway, um, if the world is getting warmer, which I will not grant because the real world measurements don't match the computer simulations, But even if it were getting warmer, I don't see where that would be a bad thing. As recently as the medieval warm period, the whole world was warmer and it didn't kill people. Of course, it was followed by the Little Ice Age, which kind of did kill people. They froze to death because they couldn't afford coal to heat their homes. Okay, Tim thinks the universe is rotating, which is what powers gravity and causes matter to coalesce. It's why electrons have spin and time has a direction. Well, it isn't global warming anymore, it's climate change. You know why? It's been getting colder. The only places where it's been warmer are places like airports and the centers of large cities because concrete and asphalt retain heat. When you pave the land, the pavement is hot. It's hotter, warmer at least, than the dirt used to be. And besides, we haven't been keeping good records of temperature for that long. You know how they found those dead bodies in peat bogs? Coal was so expensive that people, actually whole companies, businesses would cut the top of the peat moss and dry it out so it could be used as an alternative fuel instead of coal. People could burn peat in their stoves and ovens and furnaces and fireplaces. Well, down below the stuff on top were these dead bodies that appeared to be sacrificial victims from ancient times, ancient pagan times. Yeah, well, I kind of feel sorry for Greta Thunberg. I've heard it pronounced Thunberry and Thunber. Apparently, the G is either silent or a Y. Anyway, um, she's a child, and she's been shoved into the spotlight to lead a movement that she doesn't understand. I'm setting up my car to save the earth while she sails across the ocean in a fiberglass yacht with diesel engines because she won't fly because that hurts the environment. Excuse me? Okay, Oswald says the Swedish pronunciation is like Thunberg. Thunberg. Okay. That's reasonable. I can almost read the languages of Scandinavia, Holland, Denmark, Sweden, Norway, Finland. Well, not so much Finland. Finnish is different, but even Flemish, Belgian, they're quite similar to German, but not identical. However, when Europeans speak six languages, you can bet that they are primarily languages that are so close to each other that all you have, it's like learning Australian English. I could do that. I have learned some British English. Yeah, Finnish is weird. It's almost as weird as Basque. The Basque people have a genetic um, ancestry and a language that are quite different from anywhere else in the world. But, there's different dialects of German too. Bavarians and Prussians don't, neither one speaks the Hochdeutsch, or what I call Schuldeutsch, school German. And Germans in Wisconsin speak an American dialect of German. Same in Pennsylvania. The Pennsylvania Dutch were really Germans. Stupid Americans heard them say they were Deutsch and didn't know that that meant German, so they called them Dutch. All right, enough polluting of the air. And my lungs. Anyway, I'm kind of winding down. Last week, Walter Bosley came on not too long after 5:30. I think it was 5:45. I like to watch his YouTube channel. Joseph Farrell often comes on in the chat room. Giza Death Star community. That's another good YouTube channel. Okay, that's a B, not an N. Joseph Patrick Farrell. I almost dropped my coffee one time. Joseph Farrell was being interviewed by that guy in Iceland, Red Ice or something. And the interviewer said, "You're German, right?" And I'm looking at the name, Joseph Patrick Farrell, going, "No way." Yeah, there's Germans named Joseph, but Patrick? He's Irish. Irish ancestry. American, though. Oy. Oh, Sweden? Red Ice is out of Sweden? There's something out of Iceland. I can't come up with their name then. Um, the Red Ice Radio apparently is gone from YouTube. There's a Red Ice TV channel. Oh, they're neo-Nazis? That would explain why uh, their YouTube channel is gone. There's one out of Iceland. If it isn't Red Ice, what is it? Humph. YouTube channel Iceland. The interviewer's name is oh yeah. Walter Bosley has made some of his streams private, but he's been releasing them by popular demand. But there are still plenty of streams you can access. I think it's best to share a link to Walter Bosley's channel and let people look around and see what they want to hear. Anyway, yeah, neo-Nazis are just plain Nazis. I guess they have snappier uniforms, if that's possible. But, yeah, I don't. like to deal with any kind of extremist or fascist or um, there's a better word, I just can't come up with it. Fanatic in any direction. Forum Borealis is out of Norway. Maybe that's what I was thinking of. Hmm. Yeah, I like authoritarian. Um. Hmm. I don't think the extreme liberal left understands how fascist they are, or how many fascist states call themselves communist or socialist. Fidel Castro is a fascist. The Nazis were socialists. That's what Nazi means. National Socialist. Socialism and communism are simply different labels on the same hierarchy in which the entitled elites own everything and you work for them. We're really not much better off than the peasants of merry old England or the serfs of Russia not all that long ago. Less than 200 years ago, the serfs in Russia were freed, kind of around a little after our Civil War. I think it was 1867, and their status and lives were not improved just because the Tsar said they were free. Kaiser Wilhelm was an idiot. The leader of Germany, the guy who actually united Germany from a collection of petty states. World War One was a disaster for everyone. And World War Two wasn't any better. And you know what? Both world wars were truly won by Russia, even though Russia lost territory at the end of World War One. The Austro-Hungarian Empire was pretty much gone. Germany was still united, but in terrible shape. And we have the lost generation, the young men who died in World War One, leaving a gap, a generational gap, because there were no or so few young men. Oh, I see. So, folks is a new speak word. You can't use the N word, so you call them folks, huh? Not good. I don't, Michael, they might not be that smart, but someone has told them to use that word. I'm tired of top down education, politics, business. I think we need to do away with the regulatory agencies and start over from scratch because their job is to rubber stamp the big multinational corporations and drive out any small competitors. I'll give you an example. I make jam. I'm not allowed to sell it unless I get well, first go through a complicated process and then get a horridly expensive permit. And if I fail to get approved for the permit, they keep my money. and invite me to apply again. Oh dear. Yeah, well, rioting is always a bad idea. Tolerance means that if you are not a designated oppressed, if you are not a member of a designated victim a group of oppression victims, if you don't have the right skin color, heritage, language, citizenship, if you aren't, say, Mexican or African or Middle Eastern, nobody has to tolerate you. You're supposed to just go away and die so they can have your stuff. Oh yes, World War One. In the aftermath, people died from the Spanish flu, and they used that to scare us into getting flu shots. I had the flu once in 1969, January, I think. I didn't have time to be sick. I was busy taking care of everyone else. I really was not very ill. I kind of had a runny nose and a cough, but it also hit them in the guts, so I was constantly doing laundry. I think what it was they were too ill to get up and get to the bathroom. Anyway, um, I still remember Mom lying in bed screaming at me that I didn't care about her. I wanted her to die. I wanted her to starve to death because I didn't offer to bring her any food. So I asked her, "Well, what do you want?" "Nothing." "You want a bowl of soup?" "No." "How about some soda crackers?" "No." "Well, then what do you want?" "Nothing." I think she was kind of delirious from fever. The man and his dream. Oh, Tucker. Yeah. Was like, there's the cars right outside the window. Well, we aren't going to look because we know it can't be real. Yeah. Of course, the movie kind of took liberties with the history, but it's more true than the official story. The Tucker cars were incredibly safe and reliable, a little expensive, but Ford wasn't having it. And of course, the big pharmaceutical companies test their own drugs. They provide grants to colleges and universities to test their drugs. You think those colleges and universities are not going to say, "Oh, it's a good drug. Give us more money, please"? Philip, mm, oh, you should try my jam. My jam is better than others, partly because I add cinnamon while the fruit is cooking. I'm not giving up all my secrets. It's also low in sugar, so I have to get the more expensive pectin, uh, partly for food safety and partly so it won't be runny. Um, but there's other secrets. Nothing bad, but it's my recipe. Anyway, yeah, and Boeing certified its own jet, and how many people died in those two crashes before they were grounded? The 737 MAX? Boeing employees said they would never fly on one of those or let their families fly on them. Oh, yeah. Yes, Sandra, homemade jam is better. Uh, Hair in my mouth. Now, I'm shedding. I have about half of the hair I used to have a few years ago. I'm losing it. I would be going bald if I didn't have so much hair to start with. You see the factories that make jam for Smuckers and Kerr and your store brands. They don't use the best fruit. They don't care whether it's ripe. It might be unripe, it might be overripe. Doesn't matter. It's dropped into boiling water, which is good. It kills germs, and they take off the skin, the rind, the skin. Oranges are different, but I'm talking about things like peaches. And you don't want peach skin in your jam, it's fuzzy. But they're pitted by machines, that it goes to economies of scale. They can't have them done by hand fast enough or efficiently or at a lower cost. And they don't have the best fruit to start with. The best fruit is sold to you and me at the grocery store, or, and well, I'd call that better fruit because the best goes to high-end restaurants and what do they call them? Boutique uh, makers of jam or fruit baskets. Harry and David gets pretty good stuff, but it usually isn't ripe until a few days after I get it. And I haven't bought a Harry and David fruit basket in at least a decade. Can't afford it. Anyway, so you're starting off with better fruit to begin with. And then the peaches are pitted and sliced by machines and dumped into huge vats where a machine drops in the sugar, the pectin, or whatever, and stirs it. And by the time they get done, what you've got is a decent jam. It's really loaded with sugar, partly because sugar will prevent mold from growing and kill certain harmful bacteria. They also cook it at an extremely high temperature, usually under pressure, which we don't do at home. But at home, we're more careful from start to finish, at least if we care about food safety and know about it. I start my peaches in a cold water bath with vinegar, and I blanch them in boiling water to loosen the skins, the peels, and take those off by hand. And I cut out any ouchy spots like bruises or something that's discolored and discard that. And I carefully cut around the pit so I don't get chunks of the peach pit in my jam. And I cook it slowly and carefully according to the directions on the package of pectin. And when you do it yourself at home, you take more care and you don't overcook it. You don't cook it to death. so that all you can taste is the sugar. Hair looks like James Taylor. Didn't he go bald like half of the front of his head had no hair? You can almost see now that my hair is kind of brown. Something about the camera makes it look all silver, and actually I wish it were more like the image you see. It's kind of yellow, and I was a redhead. I still have some red hairs in there, but most of them have turned brown over the years. Climate change activists wouldn't be able to survive as vegans, vegetarians, if society deindustrialized like they want. Yeah, well, they'd have to learn how to eat the weeds that, like dandelions and miner's lettuce and stuff like that. A USDA pilot program for pork slaughterhouses to be self-regulated. And well, Upton Sinclair showed us the worst side of slaughterhouses. um, the thing about pig farms is they raise the pigs on concrete and just use hoses, water hoses, pressure hoses to pressure wash the concrete into the nearest body of water, a river or a stream or a tidal basin. Now, we can't seem to get that right. You see, too much organic matter will cause an algae bloom in the ocean near the shore. And that algae bloom will kill the fish. But if you clean up the sewage the way our modern cities do, till all you're putting out to the ocean is basically water, it doesn't provide enough food for the ocean flora and fauna, and they starve. We can't seem to find the right balance. Well, we're well over 2 hours, and it's been a while since I posted that you should listen to Walter Bosley. I hope he comes on at 5:30 again. You just never know. Stuff happens in the real world, and he has to take care of it. My hair is so fine that I have to have a lot of it. You can barely see a single strand of my hair. It's like a spider web. In fact, on the camera, there are hairs that it isn't seeing, but they're here. And I used to have auburn hair. It kept turning brown and brown and brown with red highlights and blonde highlights. I don't want to be a blonde. Anyway, now it's gray with brown, red, and blonde kind of distributed through it. So the total effect in person is kind of a icky yellow. I want silver. Now, my baby sister was a strawberry blonde, but she's 9 years younger, but she dyes her hair. What are my eyes? Mine are green. It's quite common among Scottish people. I still remember having an argument with Mom. Another reason why I call her the devil's sister. She insisted that I had brown eyes. I don't know how it came up in conversation. Maybe my older brother, who was in college, was talking about inheritance of eye color. And I said, "Oh, my eyes are green." And Mom insisted that they were brown. I went to the bathroom to check, to look in the mirror, and they're green. They're a rather dark green, but they are no a brown. They are not brown, they're green. You see, blue eyes have very little color in them. And if you have even less color, they're gray. And if you have no color at all, they're pink, okay, an albino. You've seen white rabbits with pink eyes. They're albinos. They have no coloring at all. Now, brown eyes have a lot of pigment. Green eyes are kind of in between blue and brown. They have more pigment than blue eyes, but less pigment than brown eyes. Now, they say that Elizabeth Taylor had violet eyes, kind of purpley, dark purple. I don't see it in her publicity photos, but okay. And Philip says Elvis Presley started blonde and became a brunette, but dyed it black. Now, well, Philip K. Dick started out what they call a towhead. His hair was white, and his daughter Laura had that white hair when she was very. Over the years, Phil's hair turned black, common among towheads. Now, his daughter Isa was a blonde, but every time I've seen her, her hair was a different color. Sometimes black, sometimes blonde, sometimes brown. And she told me that she never dyed it, it just did that, and I believe her. Gefilte fish. Oh dear. Fish that only eat kosher? Oh dear. I must have missed something. Oh, the fish that only eat kosher can't eat the runoff from the hog farm. Gefilte fish. I tried pickled herring, just so I'd know what it tasted like, but it just seemed too weird for fish to taste like a pickle. Wasn't bad. Apparently 85% of Caucasian babies start with blonde hair. My son, the first hair, when your baby's born with hair, which doesn't always happen, that first hair isn't real hair. They have a scientific term for it. His was black, but it fell out within a couple days, and he was a yellow blonde, my son. By age 40, his hair was completely gray. And that kind of runs in my family. I had an uncle who went gray in his early 20s, and I started using Miss Clairol to cover the gray when I was in high school. Oh well. Don't try strumung Swedish fermented fish. Oh, God. Yeah, I won't eat escargot. I tried sea urchin once. My son said I should. Yeesh. Tastes good, but the texture, you just can't get over it. Uh, sea urchin is slimy. Um, I've eaten some strange things, but no, I don't want snails. No, thank you. I might try chocolate covered ants, but not grasshoppers or locusts or whatever, crickets. No thanks. I even have had tongue, pickled tongue, at a Basque French restaurant. You know, it's a cow tongue. Um, I won't eat menudo. No, thank you. It smells bad. I love all kinds of cheese. Um, the stinky ones like Roquefort and blue cheese are a little off-putting, but not too bad. I won't eat head cheese because it's really made from the cow's head. No thanks. Um, you know, but I'm not that picky. I served my family a lobster dinner once, and I offered them caviar, real caviar, the little tiny black fish eggs, and they wouldn't even try them. They considered them fish bait. Well, yeah, the cheap red salmon eggs are fish bait, not these. I forget whether they were lumpfish or beluga, but they were really, really good. And the thing is, back then, you could buy a little glass jar with the metal cap for $5. So it wasn't like I broke the bank to buy it, but how dare you insult the cook? The finest caviar and you won't even try it? Hmm. They ate the lobster. Lutefisk? I used to know what lutefisk was, Tim. Animal protein means insect meat. Well, you know, there's a certain amount of insects in any processed food. They can't manage to get rid of them all, but it's usually a leg or a wing. My problem with eating insects is that there is no way to remove the guts. And I'm sorry, I don't eat guts. At least with shrimp, you can pull out what they call the vein, which is really the shrimp's gut. It's full of shrimp poop. Um, you devein shrimp for that reason. Nordic Christmas fish dish, fish cured in lye, stinks, popular in Minnesota. Well, that figures. Wisconsin and Minnesota are full of Nordic peoples. Lutefisk, I have heard of that. But you know, there's no reason not to be adventurous with food. I mean, I've finally figured out that I'm the mommy now, and if I take one bite and I don't like it, I don't have to eat it. I never forced my son to eat anything. I always asked him to try one bite, but if he didn't like it, he didn't like it. But that's isn't how it was when I was young. I spent many evenings sitting at the dining table staring at a plate of food that I could not finish. In particular, I was not much of a meat eater. I liked fish and chicken, had no truck with beef until I was older and discovered steak. But mom would cook a hamburger patty to where it was almost black and insist that I eat it. Ew, no thanks. But I never had a problem eating my vegetables, fruits, veggies, potatoes, macaroni and cheese, anything but the beef. So I'd sit there looking at this glob of hamburger meat, going, it tasted okay, but my stomach was full and I couldn't swallow it. I'd put it in my mouth and be unable to swallow. And of course, Mom would shut the dog in the bedroom so he couldn't eat it for me. Meanie. But the worst was one year I had to ask my older brothers years later. Mom served a roast beef that had been made from a free roaming cow who'd been pastured in the desert where there was lots of various weeds that the cow ate. And it tasted funny, but it wasn't bad, so I asked Mom what it was. Just eat it. She would not tell me. So I wouldn't eat it. As we were watching this old monster movie called Them, in which gigantic ants are killing people. And I just got it into my head that Mom had served a leg of meat from a gigantic ant, and I don't eat insects. Thank you. So I couldn't eat it. All because she couldn't just say, oh, it's from Dr. Sperry's cow. That would have ended it, but no, you aren't allowed to know what you're eating. Just shove it in your mouth. I hate people like that. Oh, haggis? I hear that haggis tastes like oatmeal, so I'll just eat the oatmeal, thank you. It's basically, let's see, a sheep's stomach with some meat and some oats and other stuff in it. And cooked, what, for 2 or 3 days, I think. I, well, the Irish, the Scottish were starved into submission by the bloody British, the English. And when you're desperate, you'll eat almost anything. I actually did eat an ant once. I was very young, I think 3, maybe 4 years old, and I was curious. And there's this trail of ants, so I licked a finger and went doop and got one and ate it. Oh man, did that ever burn! Ants are full of acid. So just one ant. Never ate a worm, at least not on purpose. Yes, I did try eating dirt once. Our soil had a lot of clay in it, so when you watered the garden, as the water settled down into the soil, the clay would rise up to the surface. So I took my finger and got a little bit of that clay and tasted it. But, once was enough. Okay, it's dirt, tastes like dirt. Ants have formic acid from the Latin word formica, which means ant, as in Aesop's tale of the ant and the grasshopper. Let's see, it's formica pigra et locusta impigra, the industrious ant and the not industrious grasshopper. That's where the ants all stored up food for the winter and the locust didn't bother. He was too busy having fun. In one version of the story, the grasshopper spends all winter playing the fiddle to entertain the ants so they'll feed him. Works for me. Anyway, we are now at the 2.5 hour mark, so let's see what's for dinner. I think I'm going to have some cod. Kind of like fish and chips, except the cod isn't breaded. Maybe I could bread it, but I don't want to fry it in oil. I'll think about it, but fish sounds good for tonight. Just a nice white codfish. The cat will be happy to share it with me. Okay, so have a great evening, and I'll see you next week, if not sooner. And thank you all for listening. Bye. Oh, let's see. I have to type. Thanks for listening. I did so. Press the space bar, you evil keyboard. All right.